Cheers. A little while ago I did a question and answer video, which was quite fun. However, there was a couple of things that popped up out of the woodwork while I was thinking about that, and I thought it might be useful to give a few top tips when you're actually involved in writing. Now, some of these are related only to writing novels, but some of them, most of them, will work for any type of writing. So if you're at college writing essays, if you're at university, anything like that. I've spent the last 2 years helping students on a one-to-one level at Exeter University, giving them hints and tips about how to write their essays, their PhDs, their master's degrees and everything else. And there's a few things that always came up. One thing is, when you're writing any sort of important work, plan what you're going to write beforehand. It'll save you hours and hours. I know that a lot of authors don't bother. A lot of people writing academic works don't bother because they think that the work's going to flow. But if you can, especially if you're writing an essay, write the summary first. Not because you know what you're writing about, but purely because if you put the summary down, then that will direct the whole of the rest of your writing. If you put the summary down, you'll then start looking for the sort of references that will justify what you've put in the summary. And it may well be that the summary's twaddle and you can't keep it and you've got to ditch it. But rewriting a 200-word summary is not such a problem. It does mean, though, that you get two things done. One is it'll focus where you go and do your research. That's always worthwhile. The second thing is that if you got the summary down, you've already started writing. One problem that a lot of students have is that they do some research, do a bit more research, go and live in a library for 2 weeks, and then they realise they've only got half an hour to actually write their essay. Far, far better if you can start writing the essay, rather than putting off the fateful day when you have to actually start the writing. Just start writing the essay on day one. It makes it much more straightforward. When you're writing, doesn't matter again whether it's academic or writing novels, try to work in scenes and get your mind around the concept of the scene that you're actually writing. What I tend to do is I'll write 1,000 to 1,500 words per scene. The great thing for me is that means I can write for about 50 minutes. I'll write solid for 50 minutes. That gives me 1,000 words. And at the end of that, I'll take a 10-minute break, go and get myself a cup of, I point at my cider. I'll normally go and get a cup of tea actually. But anything like that, something to take you away from the desk and just clear your mind. And then you can be planning the next scene while you're making a cup of tea or disposing of the previous one. When you've got a section of text, you've got 4 or 5 pages of words, first of all try to figure out exactly what it is. Before you go and review it, write a 1-sentence synopsis about what you think that essay or that piece of work is about. And then, when you go through and review it, always bear in mind that summary. When you review your work, think about, okay, I said this scene was about a quick argument, and then they move on to the swimming pool where there's a fight. So make sure that the scene is actually working to the lines of that sentence. If anything doesn't work, then a really good idea is to try to summarise what each paragraph means in a sentence. So you go through paragraph by paragraph. Especially in academic work, this is vital, because if you go through, you're trying to develop an argument all the way through an essay. If you can do that by having a sentence saying this paragraph is doing this, this paragraph is doing this, this paragraph is doing this, and then if you're really bright, to the side of the sentence you can say, this is the critic I've used to justify the argument, this is the witness I brought in here, this is the evidence here. And you can go through and see if you've got a logical flow. In the same way, if you get into trouble with paragraphs, very often people find that their paragraphs feel wrong. They can't quite see where or why. And it's because if you're working on a very long paragraph, you've got lots of sentences in it, very often you can't see what that sentence in the middle is actually got in it because there's so many words all around it. So if you get to each full stop, put in 2 carriage returns, so you're turning every sentence into a paragraph on its own with white space around it. It allows you then to see the flow of the argument going through that paragraph, or the flow of the scene, or the descriptions that you're writing about, or the characters or the plot or whatever, much more clearly, and you can see if there's a sentence that's got no verb in it because you mistakenly thought that it made sense and it didn't. You can tell much more clearly what is going on. The other thing I would say is, whenever you're writing, whether you're writing a book, whether you're writing academic stuff, whether you're writing a newspaper article, anything at all, get yourself in the mood. Have a deliberate series of things that you do. So you sit down at a particular desk, or you stand up at a desk. You put on some music. When I was writing my modern day thriller Act of Vengeance, I used the film music from the 3 Bourne movies. I found that they always work to get me in the mood very quickly. If I'm writing medieval books, I'll put on something like Wagner, very harsh battle sounding music, or classical music, depending on the mood I want to be in for that stuff. And then when you're in that scene or in that chapter, whatever it may be, stick to the same music, because the music will help get you into the right mood for the writing you're doing. The next thing is, when you're sitting down to work, do not muck about. Turn off your email, turn off Twitter, turn off Facebook, turn your phone off. You're not there to play, you're there to write. Because the most important thing about any type of writing, the most important clue for any author who wants to actually finish a piece of work, is you need to write. There's no way that you can be a writer if you keep putting it off because you're going off to watch Coronation Street or listen to the Archers or whatever it may be. If you want to be a writer, that's the rule. Write. Because unless you write, you're not a writer. And that, I think, is enough. Just grasping my cider, but instead I'm going to cheat. I'm going to go to my cue card. My daughter trusts me so much she's written what I have to say. So, if you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up on YouTube, subscribe, put in a comment, make it your favourite, share it, and of course follow me on all my social media. There, that was easy, wasn't it? Thank you very much, and now I'm going to go back to my cider. Cheers. Good night. Where do you get your inspiration? I get it from people around me, the countryside.